All right, we had some interesting discussions before, and let's continue into innovation and the impact innovation has on the tourism sector. Well, Josianne, I mean, we've met before, and you're full of energy, and I think you sold Malta to me even in the in the hall today, but a bit more of bio. So, Josianne, Cutajar, is that correctly pronounced?
It's Cutajar, but everyone calls it Cutajar, so it's okay.
Well, Josianne, you are a lawyer, politician, and a member of the European Parliament of Malta. You are currently as well a vice-president of the delegation of relations with Australia and New Zealand within the European Parliament and a member of the European Parliament's tourism task. And in your role as a member of the European Parliament, you are committed to keep serving the needs of the Maltese, Cositan, and European communities by ensuring that European law and policy translate into actual economic, social, and environmental justice. What a beautiful bio. Well, Josianne, my first question comes. You speak about like translation and putting things into action. I'm actually quite curious. I did some research on you. You do a lot of efforts for SMEs, for gender equality, also in the tourism sector. So can you please give some example of what kind of projects or initiatives were launched by the European Union or Commission to support this kind of target audiences?
First of all, thank you for the question and the invite, and thanks also to the Global Tourism Forum as well as my colleague Ismail Ertug for hosting us here today, and welcome to Brussels to all of you. And indeed, let me start first from the principle that you mentioned in the bio, but it's worth repeating. Sustainability, when we speak of sustainability, we have this tendency of emphasizing the environmental part, which is indeed crucial. And as EU and European Parliament, we're pushing forward the Green Deal. We have the Fit for 55 package coming up. But there's also the social aspect, which was mentioned even earlier on. And I loved hearing the presentation about attracting tourism towards the more remote areas, the peripheral areas, those areas which are low to medium income earning. It's important that we get tourism everywhere, and the economic aspect is surely important. Now, how do we translate these values and these principles into actual work within the European Parliament? First of all, the Tourism Task Force is an important fora where I, along with colleagues forming part of it, push forward a lot the European agenda when it comes to tourism. And before COVID struck, actually, we were complaining even more that tourism wasn't being given the attention it deserved. So in the meetings, although I form part of the Committee of the Transport and Tourism, there rarely was discussed tourism. It was always transport which got the limelight. And sometimes then we discussed tourism. But thanks to COVID, which ironically has brought so much hardship on our SMEs and businesses and workers in the tourism sector. However, let's see the light at the end of the tunnel, the positive aspect in every circumstance. Tourism was pushed further up on the EU agenda. Along with colleagues who had already been pushing to have a specific budget line in the MFF relating to sustainable tourism, even before COVID struck. This hasn't materialized so far. However, this doesn't mean that we won't keep on insisting and that there aren't any programs which could help SMEs and businesses and workers, because we know how important it is to keep the economy going for the workers to be there. We saw how these past months have also been witnessing workers going on to more stable jobs and moving out of tourism, and there we had a lot of draining of the skills. And how do we do this? First of all, let's look at the digitalization, which we're speaking and focusing on in this panel too. There's the Digital Europe program, which we're working upon, which we should not forget, and programs related to it. And therefore, our SMEs, our businesses, should really tap into funds which could help them in that regard. Digitalization is key. The pandemic has accelerated digitalization. Have we got there? We still need to work hard. We heard the minister from Malta also mentioning earlier on some initiatives which are being taken. There is a lot more to do. And when we speak of digitalization, if we want our SMEs, where we have a lot of SMEs which form part of the tourism sector to thrive, we have to see that there's regulation and fair competition. And that is why, even through the Transport Committee and opinions that the committee has also worked upon in Parliament, as shadow rapporteur for the Socialists and Democrats, I've worked on various files relating to digitalization, transport, and tourism. One of them was the Digital Markets Act, which precisely regulates the relationship when it comes to online platforms, for example, and the online world, when you have SMEs trying to compete with huge tech companies, which have got a lot of power within the European competitive market. This is one aspect. We're also working towards a strong EU data space. We know that the current situation and the future is data, and therefore we cannot forget data. A lot of businesses, including SMEs, have data at hand. We're speaking here of businesses even in the tourism sector, but they don't know how to valorize it, how to bring out the best in it. And therefore, it's important to have the necessary skills. And that's why the skills pact of the European Union is also very much important here. We need to help even those businesses which don't have the time or money. We have to help them with their own staff, with their own resources, to address the knowledge gap that they have. And indeed, in the SME strategy, which I worked upon in the industry committee, I emphasized a lot this important aspect. Even through the European Digital Innovation Hubs, we need to help our businesses, our SMEs in this regard when it comes to digitalization. There are a lot of opportunities, but despite speaking a lot on tech, we haven't gotten there yet. And if the EU wants to be a real leader in the field, we have to be at the forefront in practical aspect. We need even assistance from and expertise from abroad until we achieve digital leadership, but it's important that we'll work in tandem because after all, digitalization as well as the environmental change will affect all of us, and we need to address these challenges and opportunities together. I'll focus now on gender.
If you want, please.
Yes. When it comes to gender and technology and tourism, we have to see to it also. We know that how artificial intelligence creates biases when it comes to gender and other minority groups, and it's important. We believe in values in every sector, and tourism is really a universal language, a beautiful universal language, which brings us all together irrespective of our differences, and therefore we should really implement in this tourism sector gender equality and resort to non-discrimination and work towards biases in technology and AI. So this is also an aspect which I push forward, and also I will conclude on this point before moving on to other questions. I'd like to also state the fact that we will be working upon 2050 digital targets similar to what we have in the Green Deal, in the environmental aspect. In the environmental aspect, the EU has got 2030 and 2050 targets there, and when it comes to digitalization, we're doing the same. Today I've been also told with positive news that I'll be the shadow rapporteur, so I'll be the negotiator on the side of the Socialists and Democrats when it comes to the new European Digital Decade program. This is a program of how we will put into effect targets to achieve digitalization and achieve them. And therefore, this is something practical, which I look forward a lot towards. I'll stop here for now, and we'll continue discussing as you wish and the audience wishes. And also a welcome to all those following us digitally online.
Of course. Thank you so much for a quite clear reply. Many initiatives were set up, and you're doing an amazing job, and thank you for that. And online, you've got another speaker. His name is Max Rangeley, and he can, I think, dive deeper into data and artificial intelligence. Well, first of all, he is the founder of ReboundTag. This is the first microchip luggage tag that works in all airports worldwide. ReboundTag, they won different awards for branded microchip luggage tags range from Lufthansa, Marriott to Sony, Facebook, and even Google. So Max have moved actually from entrepreneurship to setting up think tanks now in the parliament in the UK. And he spoke quite interesting a few years ago about artificial intelligence. And I'm actually curious what Max's opinion is on the impact of technology on the tourist sector or in the economy in general.
Thank you very much, Yulia. And thank you very much to the organizers for putting together such a good event today. And so actually, I mean, technology is really going to affect just about every aspect of travel over the coming years. Over the last few years, we've seen just about every aspect of booking travel move online. That's been the primary change. But actually, the speed of technological shift is, if anything, likely to accelerate over the next generation or so. So there are a number of key trends which is important to understand in order to map out how this is likely to develop. But the first and probably the most important of these trends is converging technologies. So if you look at all of the most important technologies that are developing at the moment, that are the most famous, like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and blockchain, and so on. It's where these different technologies converge that we're likely to see the most revolutionary changes in the travel market. So as Yulia mentioned, as well as setting up ReboundTag, for the last few years, I've also been running a think tank for a Member of Parliament in the UK. And we actually have done quite a lot of work with events in the European Parliament there in Brussels too, looking at emerging technologies. So, for instance, we organised the 5-day-long blockchain summit in the European Parliament in 2016, and then also the artificial intelligence roundtable discussions in the European Parliament in 2019, as well as several other events over the years. But actually, it's always really interesting to dig down into those technologies specifically. But I think the most interesting areas now are really where these different technologies come together. So actually, the last event that we did in the European Parliament was last year, just before the world went into lockdown. And that was on looking at the convergence between artificial intelligence and blockchain and other tech. So whereas previously most of the discussion about converging technologies was in quite high-level research, so for instance, in biotechnology, it's looking at how many of the developments were actually driven by developments in artificial intelligence. Now we're reaching a point where this is filtered down, and really pretty much whatever business you're running, if it's involved in technology, it's not enough to be one-dimensional anymore. So it's whereas, for instance, in media with previous generations, you had television and you had radio and so on. Modern technology has brought much of this together, and I think with respect to travel technology in particular, we're finding that convergence of technologies is more concrete and at a more consumer level than even most other sectors. So, for example, you mentioned the company that I set up, ReboundTag, which sells microchip luggage tags. So, obviously, on the face of it, what we're doing is preventing lost luggage when you travel. But actually, if we look at how tech is likely to develop over the coming years, first of all, you'll see more and more airports integrating artificial intelligence, both in tracking bags and also other things around the airport. So that means you as a traveler, for instance, can be given more and more live updates as your bag goes through the airport and so on. But then also step on a little bit further. And if we think of robotics, for instance, that's definitely one of the most interesting areas at the moment in terms of the speed of development. And we're now seeing the first robot concierges in hotels. And of course, they're still somewhat basic, but the technology is moving very quickly. But when you begin to combine that with, for instance, Internet of Things, then when the robot comes to pick up your bag and deliver it to the room, again, if all of the bags are microchipped, then that makes it a far smoother procedure rather than having to rely on pattern recognition essentially, which can lead to various problems. So I think the key aspect of what we're looking at in terms of these different technologies is, yes, individually, they're all very exciting, but it's where these different technologies converge that we're going to see the most interesting developments over the next generation.
Thank you so much, Max. Another very interesting lady joining us online today. Her name is Valentina Ndou, and again, I hope I pronounce it right as well. She is the Ph.D. and the senior researcher and aggregate professor on Management Engineering Department at University of Salento in Italy. She is actively involved in research, education, and project management at national and international level, in collaboration with worldwide leading companies, universities, and research centers. She's actually manager of the Interact project Italia, Albania, Montenegro, networking for smart tourism. So she is the right lady to ask the following question. Dear Valentina, how and where the new technology or innovation advances and impacting the tourism activities or even offers?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the presentation by Yulia. My surname is Ndou. Yes, I am Albanian and I am living in Italy from 20 years now. Yes, your question, I think it has been already, get an answer already by the speakers that speak before me. I have just to, let's say, structure these ideas that all of us know for what is happening to tourism in these recent years. In all sectors, we have entered in a new era, the era that is called Fourth Industrial Revolution, or known as Industry 4.0, that is affecting all processes, activities, and actors of all the society, of businesses that are public and private. The powerful spread of this technology, of these technologies that are related to Industry 4.0, as my previous speaker said, such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, or other, are replacing the traditional mode of doing and operating to creating a new digital world. And we have seen this also during these two difficult years that all of us has experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic that has, as the first speaker said, also created, let's say, a positive effect, ironically, also for me, that has accelerated the technology adoption and the use by people, by individuals, and obviously also by businesses, and has created some new novel opportunities and values for the economy. A proof of this huge exponential digitalization in all sectors and in all fields of our life could be also measured, for instance, by comparing the amount of information, so the data that are stored and the digital data that we have at our disposition today, and that we can work on them and get insights from them. Again, data is the new capital, as the previous speaker said, and the businesses yesterday relied mainly on human, financial, intellectual capital for their competitiveness, but now today the data and how we deal with this data and how we elaborate this data is essential for business survival and to thrive in the new digital age. Obviously, tourism is impacted by these new technologies, by Industry 4.0, again, and because tourism is a knowledge-intensive sector and is one of the sectors that has always been, let's say, married with the technology, because it is one of the first sectors that has provided flights, travels, and hotel bookings online. So digital transformation, in other words, can be considered also in these days one of the most important and vital factors for the competitiveness of the tourism sector. The digital technologies has created a new tourism offer that is more attractive and inclusive, economically, socially, environmentally sustainable, and they have also facilitated the innovation and the rethinking of different processes, or the way how we can deal with different challenges of the tourism economy, the tourism sector, such as seasonality, overcrowding, or also the sustainability that is today one of the most important, let's say, issues to recover and to deal with the technology.
Valentina, you said something about.
Therefore, the technologies. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Valentina. You said something about education. Let's dive deeper into that with you and then followed by our colleagues here. Which are the new skills or competencies that you think are required in this new tech innovation? So we speak about data, we speak about artificial intelligence, and even Max spoke about the blockchain. What's the role of the education according to you?
Yes, so as the future of tourism is going to be technology-based, we also need to revise the competencies and skills and abilities base for these sectors. And obviously, we need new technical and advanced skills for dealing with such revolutionary, let's say, technologies. From a recent report realized by World Economic Forum, it has been foreseen that there will be a decline of the redundant roles of the jobs from 15.5% to 9%. And by 2025, 85 million jobs will be displaced and they will be replaced with new jobs. But these new jobs, according to this study, will be larger than the ones that will be displaced, because the numbers are 97 million new roles in confront to 85 million jobs that will be displaced. What this data shows us or says to us is that we need to undertake activities and initiatives of education. We need to revise the education sector and to create new skills and new competencies for the new tourism sector, for the new, let's say, the next future of tourism sector. In fact, we need new skills that are mainly related with creative thinking, with handling with technology, with using algorithms, with creating insights from the big amount of data that are at our disposition in these days. And as we know, many, especially small, medium enterprises, but also managers working at destination level, they do not know yet how to deal with this data. And another important thing for education is networking. Networking, for example, with tech technologies, in order to make a transfer of the skills from those that develop the new technology to those that needs to use it for competitive advantage or for innovation.
Thank you so much, Valentina. Well, I'll move back to Josianne. Please, maybe you could add something about the knowledge sharing, networking, and education.
Yes, first of all, I enjoyed listening to the other speakers on the panel, and indeed a lot of valid points came up. Networking is essential, and yes, it's not always easy, especially when we speak of SMEs, and that's why these digital innovation hubs in the EU could help SMEs even to network. And when it comes to skills, recently in the Transport and Tourism Committee at the European Parliament, we had a session with UNWTO where we were discussing also with the Commission of how we can address the skills gap which is present in today's tourism sector. And one of them was precisely that before we used to speak of languages. When it comes to tourism, languages are important for sure, but there is the technological language, there is coding, there is AI, there are other basic and more advanced skills depending on what we need. And there's also the importance of resiliency and creativity. This would really equip the tourism market and the workers with the skills needed so they'll feel more secure at mind, security of mind, and we retain as much skills as we could in the tourism sector. And the idea came up of a new academy relating to these skills, and this could also be applied regionally. It's important to collaborate internationally, but let's not forget the importance and the strength of regional tourism. For example, I come from Malta and Gozo, where we have a strong Mediterranean dimension. And a proposal which I did put forward even in the debate with the European Commission recently in plenary, and I wanted to also repeat here as a takeaway maybe to be applied even regionally, you and WTO have a technological platform which brings together employers and employees seeking work within the tourism sector. And I propose something on a more regional level when it comes to the European Union. This is something which could be applied elsewhere also. Otherwise, I wanted to note, yes, the new consumer behavior trends. Consumers are also the expectations of consumers are also increasing when it comes to technology and digitalization. And this we have to really realize. We have to keep in mind the role which social media has nowadays when it comes to marketing destinations and the importance that we need to put into it. It's a real thing. Even in politics. Nowadays, it's not like it was 10 years ago when I first contested the local council elections, where I had a Facebook page and posted one-offs. But nowadays, we really have to be constant online, and even our businesses need to realize that in the tourism sector. And then sharing of best practices is obviously key, and digitalization to bring a positive touristic experience with real-time data. If there's a person who is searching for a quiet place and doesn't want to be in a crowded place, apps could help him to go to these places, and it could also lead towards tourism to the periphery and areas which are not so popular. And every destination has got its beautiful aspect. Otherwise, redefining the seasonality through technology is also another important point. The minister mentioned digital nomads, and yes, digitalization could help us in addressing shoulder months, whether it's via digital nomads or other aspects. And connectivity is key. If we want to get to the rural, more peripheral areas and get everywhere, connectivity is key. Sometimes, even in the center, we don't have adequate internet connections, let alone in other areas. I wanted to share with you the EU's initiative when it comes to the Capital for Smart Tourism Awards. This is something very important which could also be replicated in other areas within the world, and it really helps to incentivize different cities, different villages to come out with smart tourism initiatives. And then Horizon Europe and the funds related to research and innovation are also key, and we could really address certain challenges that we have in the touristic sector. I will conclude on one important point. Digitalization will help a lot when it comes to tourism, and we need to yet achieve the full potential. But let's not forget that tourism is about the human aspect. It's about human interaction, and therefore it's important. Let's not forget to first invest in the human capital, in the human being, in the worker, and that business entrepreneur, and then the other aspects will follow. Then we could tutor when it comes to digital skills, we could train, we could educate, and we could also lead towards innovation, because it all centers around humanity and the human person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It deserves an applause. At the end, yes, we can talk about technology, and in some parts of tourism sector, we still are too much into the paper work. But I think the input we got today was amazing. Thank you so much to Max, thank you to Valentina, and to you, Josianne. It's been a long day, and I think we've got another speaker waiting. Thank you for the input, and have a great day.